Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2020-21 season. My name is Dan and today we're doing a Game Week 18 captains video, and what a roller coaster ride the run up to Game Week 18 has been already. Absolutely crazy. Fixture swapping and changing, who's going to be playing, we don't know. Different rest periods for different teams being moved all over the place. And just loads of messing about with free hit teams, for me personally anyway. So, information has been updated. There's been a couple of minor injuries as well. Minor knocks, some slight doubts for various players. So, I'm kind of glad that I'm making this captain's video pretty late on. Of course, the deadline is tomorrow. So hopefully I can give you the most up-to-date information possible, and hopefully nothing else will change before tomorrow's deadline. So hopefully this is going to be useful for you guys today. And if you do find it useful, of course, please do give a like on the video. Really appreciate it, guys. And do subscribe if you're new around here too. Why not? Plenty of FPL stuff to come on this channel. But we're doing top five captains for Game Week 18, and I think we just start off with a fifth best choice and then work our way up to number one. What do you think, guys? Let's start off with number 5. Now, number 5, I've gotten down here as Marcus Rashford away to Burnley. I quite like Marcus Rashford just because he's kind of the second best Manchester United option after Bruno Fernandes. And I know he's not necessarily a player you'd typically be looking to captain, but on a game week like this, there's not actually as many options to go for. Some of the bigger teams not playing, of course. The fixtures are okay, but there's nothing really amazing this game week, I wouldn't say. And one of the better fixtures, arguably the best matchup, some people might say, is Manchester United versus Burnley. I really like the look of this matchup. So, it'd be foolish of me to not add some Manchester United players in here. And I thought Marcus Rashford, good place to start, really. Not the best, but you'd say probably the second best player at Manchester United, and maybe a good alternative to a certain other man if you don't have him in your FPL teams. But Marcus Rashford actually looking pretty good statistically, so let me read you out some stats. So he's had, in the past 5 games that he's played, 18 shots. That's 4th of all players in that period. 11 shots in the box, 9 shots on target. That's 2nd place out of all players. So lots of shots. Lots of shots on target as well. Compared to all other players, he's right up there. 4 big chances he's had, which is, again, really, really high. 2.72 expected goals, nice. 4 actual goals. He's top for that, by the way. Over the past 5 games, he's scored 4 goals. No one can beat that. So really nice for Rashford there. He's overperforming his XG. Perhaps that's him being a clinical player, though. You never know. 2 key passes, though, which is a little bit disappointing with no big chances created. 0.57 expected assists is okay, but he's not had any actual assists. His creativity has kind of been lacking a little bit recently. But overall, 3.29 expected goal contributions in 5 games. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. So I do think there is something to be excited about Rashford in this game week for sure. So you know, even if you're not going to captain him, maybe it's worth considering putting it in your free hit teams. I would definitely think about it if I were you guys. But let's have a quick look at Burnley, because Burnley is the opposition, and like I said, I do quite like the look of this matchup. I really do. So Burnley, they've had a fairly easy run recently, and they've kind of managed to keep clean sheets in half of their last 6 games, 3 games out of 6, but the game before those 6 games, they lost 5-0 to City. You might remember that. During the 6 games since City, they've massively overperformed their expected goals conceded. So they're actually expected to concede 1.59 goals per game, which actually puts them as one of the worst teams in the league defensively, you know. And the amounts of shots they concede as well. One of the worst in the league. They concede far too many shots. Yet, they've kind of done okay. They've kept teams down. Now, do you put this down to Nick Pope being a fantastic goalkeeper? The fact that they haven't really played very clinical sides since City. Maybe there's a bit of both there as well. But could they crumble against, you know, crumble again? Now they're playing a side in the league who is, you know, probably the only team who is as potent in attack right now as Manchester City. I would say Manchester United are up there like that. So now they're playing the hard opposition. Maybe these expected goals conceded are going to actually turn into goals conceded. So when you're giving up 10 shots per game against a player like Rashford, for example, we're using here, you have to think he's going to be more clinical than other strikers. So who have Burnley faced recently in terms of strikers? They've faced Bamford, McGoldrick, for example, 2 guys who famously underperform on their stats in any game. So, you know, Rashford is going to do a little bit better there, and Manchester United in general are going to do a little bit there. So, the only issue here is if you've got Bruno Fernandes is Rashford really, is it really necessary to go for Rashford if you also have Bruno Fernandes? It's a little bit of a differential. Is it a necessary risk? I think it's probably an unnecessary risk. So for that reason, I can't really put Rashford any higher than 5th, because it's kind of like, if you're going to go for a Manchester United player, you're going to go for Rashford, unless he's the only one you've got. Probably not. Number 4 on my list is HeungMin Son, home to Fulham, the rescheduled game as of literally today. So everything's going to have to go back to the drawing board for many people, this Spurs game against Fulham. And it's kind of a case of, how tempted are we by this fixture? I mean, obviously, we're going to be putting in some Spurs players, I imagine, into our free hit teams. If you've got Spurs players in your regular teams, you're probably feeling pretty happy they're playing up against Fulham. It's kind of a case of, how good of a fixture is this, and is it worth captaining a Spurs player? Let's go through that. So we'll start off with some Son stats, and as always, you kind of got to be careful about Son's stats, because he does always outperform, overperform, do better than his stats suggest. But let's go through his past 5 games. Anyway, 7 shots, 6 in the box, so most of his shots are in the box, 4 on target, so pretty good in that respect. 3 big chances, so again, the chances that he is getting, a lot of them are big chances. 1.61 expected goals, 2 actual goals there. 12 key passes, which I was quite surprised by. That's quite a lot of passes, actually. 3 big chances created as well, which is 5th best, although it is kind of 5th best with a lot of other players. So he's not the only person to have 3 big chances created in the past 5 games, but it's still pretty good. 1.82 expected assists, 2 actual assists, so that's about right. But what's the most interesting thing out of everything with Son is he's involved in 2/3 of Spurs' goals, which is actually better than Kane, because Kane's sort of only involved in sort of 50% of Spurs' goals, or expected to be involved in 50%. Son, on the other hand, 2/3, 2 out of 3, 67%, whatever you want to call it. Over the past 5 games, Son is actually more involved in the Spurs attack. So you can say with a reasonable amount of confidence that if Spurs are scoring, Son is probably on the score sheet, whether that's a goal or assist, whatever. So let's talk about Fulham quickly, because I think this is where things get a little bit not as amazing as you perhaps think they are, on the face of it anyway. So Fulham, they're kind of... It's hard to talk about their recent games because it feels like they've missed so many games. I'll be honest with you guys. Defensive stats, expected goals conceded, shots conceded per game, etc, etc, etc. That puts them about mid-table in terms of defensive. Maybe slightly above average. But in particular, Fulham concede an incredibly low amount of shots in the box. In reality, they're hardly actually conceding any goals whatsoever. In their past 6 games, they've only conceded 5. 2 of them were against City. They only conceded 1 goal against Liverpool. They only conceded 1 goal against Leicester. They conceded the 5th and final goal out of those past 6 games against Newcastle. And that was only because of that, I don't know if you guys remember it, incredibly lucky Callum Wilson penalty that was given against them. They've kept clean sheets against Southampton and Brighton. Both happened in the last 3 game weeks in which they played. So you look at that and you think, why is everyone so desperate to target Fulham? They are doing okay defensively, pretty good in fact, particularly when you look at the run of fixtures they've just had. Are we still, maybe thinking about the shell-shocked Fulham that just come into the Premier League and looked like they were going to be poor? We saw that in the first few game weeks, but now, I don't think so. I really think Fulham... They're underrated. They're really underrated, and they're not really a good team to target at all. They're not the whipping boys, and if you're picking a Spurs player for your captain, don't pick them because you think, oh, this is a lovely fixture to play against. It's not. Pick a Spurs player because you like the player, because that's really the only benefit here. For going for a Spurs player for your captain, it's not a good fixture, but you can have a good player. This is not an easy game, but the advantage of Son, as I was saying earlier, is if there are any goals scored by Spurs, even if it's just 1, and they're looking at the stats, it's quite likely that there'll only be 1 or 2 goals for Spurs. Then there is a good chance that Son is going to have a hand in that goal. So you've got that advantage, and that's why we pick someone like Son, or someone kind of like our number 3, Harry Kane, also at home to Fulham. Similar situation. He's one of the, generally speaking, Son, Kane, they link up, they score goals. It's usually those 2. I'm not going to say it's always. It's usually those 2 when it comes to goals being scored by Spurs. So again, we're thinking... Do we think that Spurs are going to score 2 goals is what you really look against Fulham. If they're only going to score 1 goal against Fulham, you think it's going to be a 1-0 or a 1-1 or something like that. you probably would not go for a Spurs player whatsoever. I do think there's a good chance of Spurs scoring 3 goals. It's 2 goals, sorry. I don't know about 3 goals, and this is why I'm struggling to put Spurs players higher up in my ranking. A lot of people quite like a look at Spurs players. I'm not sure, because when I go for a captain, I look for a nice high ceiling. I want a player who can genuinely, it looks like they could score 20 points in a game week, which obviously it's not going to happen every single game week, but I want there to be at least a chance of a 20-pointer. And I don't think that's going to come from a Spurs player this game week, but I do think it's more likely to come from Harry Kane. And once again, it's mostly about the stats in the past 5. So 20 shots for Harry Kane, that's 4 shots per game, not bad. 12 in the box, 7 on target. So actually, that's not too bad. 3 big chances. Harry Kane, he takes so many shots. Not a lot of them are going to be big chances. He likes to take a lot of shots. 2.38 expected goals. 2 actual goals, so slightly underperforming, which is kind of surprising. We do expect that him to catch up, regress to the mean, and all that jazz. 2 key passes and 1 big chance created. So he hasn't been quite as creative as Son, but 0.82 expected assist is not too bad. 1 actual assist as well. So yeah, about what you would expect there as well. So overall, you're looking pretty good statistically. He's, that player who will take a lot of shots. Fulham are not allowing a lot of shots, so maybe that's the kind of thing you're looking for. Like I was saying earlier, Fulham don't really concede shots in the box. Maybe it's because they sit back and defend. That's not really going to play very well into a player like Son's hands. Not to say that Son can't score a goal or get a goal in other ways. He absolutely can. He's a fantastic player. But Harry Kane is perhaps the player who's more likely to score, a different kind of goal. He has more variety of the kind of goals he can score, perhaps. So for that reason, yes, I would be looking at Harry Kane above Son in terms of captains. In terms of who I would pick for my fantasy team, slightly different question, because there is that price difference. But if you've got one, if you've got both, Harry Kane might be the one to go for your captain there. But there's 2 better options. That's the always is at this stage of the video. Number 2, Kevin De Bruyne, home to Brighton. Not bad, not bad. A lot of people really like this one. I kind of understand why number 2 for a reason, but it's not my number 1 pick, but it's number 2, I think, for a reason. I think this will probably be one of the most popular picks. I think this is probably the safe pick. I think the least can go wrong by, saying that, do I agree? The least can go wrong in terms of the general masses of FPL in terms of this pick, because I think Kevin De Bruyne is going to be the most popular captain. So if it all goes terribly wrong, it goes wrong for everyone, so it doesn't really matter. So in that sense, it's kind of risk-free. But like I said, it's not my favourite pick, but we'll come to that in a second. So stats for Kevin De Bruyne in the past 5, as we always like to do. 16 shots, 7 in the box, only 5 on target, which is disappointing. 3 big chances. That's not too bad. 2.09 expected goals. Pretty good. Only 1 goal. So we know this. We know that Kevin De Bruyne has not been finishing his chances off recently. He really hasn't. He's kind of been really disappointing. His finishing ability recently, because he scored a goal against Chelsea, maybe people are a little bit more confident about this one. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit knee-jerk, but in general, it's kind of been a little bit up and down. So 17 key passes, 6 big chances created, expected assists of 3.17, which converted into only 2 assists. Again, the passes that KDB has been creating, generally speaking, his teammates have not been able to finish them off. Aguero's still not back for whatever reason. We don't know if he's going to play in this game week or not. Gabriel Jesus is not quite there, is he? Some of the other players have been fairly wasteful as well. But what I do like about KDB is he's got 46% expected goals involvement. He's been involved in a little bit less, I think, in actuality. But 46% expected goals involvement, that's pretty good. You would say that maybe 50% of the goals scored by Man City will be involving De Bruyne. The issue with De Bruyne as well is that a lot of his points, or expected points at least, are expected to come through assists. And assists don't get you as many points as goals, which is kind of another slightly off-putting thing. Overall, he's fantastic. I don't want to put you off him, because I'm nitpicking here because I want to find the very, very, very best captain in any given game week. So I have to nitpick a little bit and try and find the things that are awesome, but not mind-blowingly amazing kind of thing. So that's kind of what I'm saying here. But the other reason is Brighton. not fully convinced by Brighton as an opposition either. So Brighton, they're another team that I am a little bit cautious about being too optimistic about targeting. I don't think they're a whipping boy by any stretch of the imagination. Brighton have sort of shown all season you can't just play them and score for fun. They will defend well, they'll keep the ball, they'll keep you out. They, of course, inevitably always seem to end up conceding one goal, but it's usually kind of just the one, or for large parts of the season, it has just been one goal that they've been conceding there. Or at least that's exactly how I felt until they played Wolves last game week. A team not particularly known for scoring a lot of goals, scored 3 goals against Brighton. Now, it seems like Brighton may be dropping off. Well, I mean, looking at their stats, they are dropping off. They are it does seem like a decline in their defensive ability. They are kind of underperforming, though, a little bit still. So perhaps the actual amount of goals they've conceded in the last couple of game weeks maybe is slightly an overrepresentation, but you know, a team of Manchester City's quality, providing they are a bit more clinical than they have been recently, they will take those chances, will they? And they will overperform. I mean, hopefully that's the idea with City. I know it's not always happened recently, so you know, this overall is a kind of confusing one to me, and this is why I can't put KDB at top. So much stuff looks good, but there is that element of doubt, and the doubt is KDB going to perform like he did against Chelsea, finish his chances? Are his teammates going to finish the chances that he creates? And are Brighton on a downward defensive trajectory, as it kind of looks like they are? And now, if your answer is yes to both of those questions, then KDB is the one for you. But if the answer is no to either of those, or if you're just looking for a little bit more certainty, then we have our number 1 pick for captains in game week 18. And that is Bruno Fernandes, away to Burnley, Mr. Consistency. He's kind of returned in each of his past 4 games. So 17 points, then 12 points, then 6 points, then 10 points. So they're not even low scores. He's consistent and consistently high scoring games. We can go a bit further. His last 10 games, he's returned in 8 of his last 10. Now 6 of those 10 have been 10-point hauls or more. If you want to do all 16 games this season that Bruno's played, he's returned in 11 out of 16 games, and an insane 8 of those 16 games have been 10 points or more. The guy just gets points. He's the perfect player for FPL in that sense. 50% of his games this season, he has not only returned, but hauled. And usually, if he's not hauling, it's kind of because he's playing a trickier fixture. So, for example, 5 games he's blanked this season. 3 of those fixtures, 3 of those blanks out of those 5 blanks have been against City. In the, you know, when obviously City have been in really good defensive form, and they were, you know, in good defensive form when they played them. Whereas perhaps earlier on in the season, City weren't so good in defence, or maybe more average. Now they're amazing. Manchester United played them when they were amazing defensively. They played Arsenal, who you all say, oh, Arsenal is not a hard game. Well, I mean, look back, teams are beating Arsenal, but no team is scoring a lot of goals against Arsenal all season. They've been pretty good defensively. You can say what you like about their attack, they've been rubbish. But defensively, they've been okay. So you can see why Manchester United might have struggled there, and Bruno in particular. And then finally, Chelsea, early on in the season, when Chelsea were kind of the defensive masters. We were all targeting Chelsea, thinking, wow, this is a really good defence. So the blanks for Bruno are against really, really, really tough defences. When it's not a tough defence, and Burnley kind of aren't a tough defence, really, if you look at the statistics, I know, you know, it looks like they've conceded less goals, but, you know, look at the strikers, look at the forwards they've been facing. They've been really, really overperforming their stats recently. Bruno's he's gonna do the business here, surely. I mean, it looks, everything points in this direction, doesn't it? But anyway, let's look at some stats. Past 5 games for Bruno: 17 shots, 9 in the box, 6 on target, 5 big chances, 3.19 expected goals, 4 goals, 15 key passes, 2 big chances created, 1.71 expected assists, 3 actual assists, and involved in 50% of Manchester United's goals. So again, one of those players, and this is kind of the kind of player I like for a captain. He's involved in a lot of goals. If Manchester United are scoring, Bruno is on the score sheet, whether it's a goal or an assist. You know, so Burnley, I should also note that you can pretty much ignore home and away when it comes to United. I know this is an away game against Burnley, but United, they can actually do a little bit better away from home, so don't really pay too much attention to that. I think ultimately, home and away is just kind of irrelevant to Manchester United, so don't read too much into either side, whether it's home or away. Just treat home and away as equal for Manchester United, I suppose. So, yeah, I do like this one. I do like this one a lot. I think he's consistent. I think he's ticking all of the right boxes for me. I think Burnley are overrated. If you look at the underlying stats and if you look at actually who they've been playing, who they've come up against, you can understand why they haven't conceded quite as many goals as they perhaps should have done. And a team like Manchester United, who, like I said, are one of the best attacking teams in the league right now. Bruno, you know, the FPL points master, the main attacking player in that Manchester United side, I think there's going to be goals. And I see this one as the best captain pick. Now, some people might disagree. I don't think there's as much in it as there have been in previous game weeks. I wouldn't blame you for captaining KDB. Spurs players, I'm a little bit more cautious about. Anyone else, you're probably taking a bit of a punt, to be honest. But, yeah, Bruno Fernandes is the one for me. So there you go, guys. Thank you very much for watching today. I know this has been quite a long one, but, you know, so much to talk about as always, and I love talking about FPL, and it's been a couple of days since I've made a video, so I get excited to talk to you guys. But if you did enjoy this video, please do give it a big thumbs up, a big like on the video. Really appreciate it. If you're new around here, please do consider subscribing too. I would really appreciate that. Also, leave a comment telling me who you think is the best captain for this game week and who you're going to be captaining in your own teams as well. Really be interesting to see what you guys are up to with your FPL teams. And until then, I will see you tomorrow, guys, when we're going to do a deadline stream for Game Week 18. I'm going to make some final changes to my free hit team, which will inevitably happen. Always really, really exciting stuff. So I will catch you on tomorrow's deadline stream, 1 hour before deadline as usual. But until then, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.